Test.
You live?
Good afternoon.
Oh, so you got memory for pictures?
I'm going to introduce Tamika Aguirre. Mika was the brains behind getting this organized today. Mika is an Army veteran, and Mika is a victim of military sexual trauma. So Mika's going to tell her story, and then Mika's going to just lead us in how things are going to take place today.
Y'all, I'm already nervous. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Alrighty. As she said, my name is Tamika Aguirre. And for those that can roll the R's, it is Aguirre. First of all, I don't do anything without bringing God into it. So, I have to bend and kneel at the foot of the cross. So, for those that wish to join me, fine. Those that practice another religion, I'm okay with that too. Heavenly Father, God, you already know the purpose of this gathering. I ask you to touch me and guide me. I ask you to touch and guide my 12 sisters that are a part of this movement. God, I thank you for your grace and your mercy for allowing us in under a month put together 19 rallies in 13 states. I ask you to touch the hearts of every victim of MST, the survivors and the non-survivors. God, I ask you to move through this protest. I ask you for your blessings. I ask you for peace. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
We're going to start this with a moment of silence for the non-survivors. Okay, let's begin. Vanessa Guillen, Lavina Johnson, Carrie Goodwin, Maria Lauterbach, Nicole Berman, Michelle Miller, Tina Priest, Kamisha Block, Natasha Asafon, Thea Ayu. All of those names that I just said are non-survivors except the last one. Thea is the young lady on the end of this poster who is currently locked up. She's in solitary confinement in the Chesapeake Breed. She is a United States Marine, and we are fighting to get her out. She has been put there to keep her silent about her military sexual trauma. The brochures here at the table will guide you on what we need to do to help get her released. I am asking you, I am depending on you to help me in that movement. I would like to mention my sisters that are out there in different states, all across the United States, in this national-wide protest. we have Katie Corbett. She's currently rallying at the gate of Fort Hood, Texas. Cynthia Pagoon, she's in Corpus Christi, Texas. Lisa Warwick is in Augusta, Georgia. Joey Ortega is in Houston, Texas. Estefina Gibson is in Chicago, Illinois. Shelby Pearson is in Auburn, Washington. Chanel Williams, Jasmine Lovin, Elizabeth Berg, Dana Granger, Magnum, Oklahoma. Marie Andorra Polozio is also in Orlando, Florida. Victoria Santos Paul is in New York City. Tolila Sampras is in Sacramento, California. Tracy Diane is in Oklahoma. Susan Henry is in Greenville, Ohio. Michaela Hernandez is also in Killeen, Texas. Aaron Pinero is in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Rachel Lockett is also in Augusta, Georgia. I would like to read to you our official press release. Military women march and rally nationally to protest military sexual trauma. The tragic death of Army PFC Vanessa Guillen, who was brutally murdered on base while serving at Fort Hood, Texas, has brought into stark focus our country's failure to properly deal with the ongoing crisis of military sexual trauma, which is also known as MST. MST affects thousands of women and men in the U.S. Armed Forces every year, but only a small percentage of these crimes ever result in real consequences for those responsible. In response, the family of Vanessa Guillen are joining up with both active duty and veteran members of all five branches of our military for a series of marches and protests scheduled to take place in 19 cities from coast to coast on Saturday, August the 1st, 2020. This larger event was preceded by a preparatory event which took place in Jacksonville on Saturday, July the 25th, 2020. The numbers are deeply disturbing. Out of approximately 500,000 active duty military personnel, roughly 75,000 or 15% of these are women. 1 out of every 3 women will experience some form of MST during the term of their enlistment. Over 20,000 military personnel reported being the victims of rape, sexual assault, stalking, harassment, or domestic violence just last year. Of those, only slightly more than 300 reports resulted in formal criminal action. Only 105 of those resulted in actual conviction. These trends are far worse than what we have seen among the general population. Unfortunately, the vast majority of victims, including PFC Guillen, never reported these crimes to the proper authorities. And the root of these causes are conditions that these events hope to force some improvement of. Some 75% of MST victims report that their attackers was someone above them in their chain of command, which raises issues related to workplace discrimination and abuse of power within the command structure. Many victims report being subject to further harassment and or abuse in retaliation for speaking out. This movement was created, as I told you, by 12 women. I am number 13. We all met on Facebook in a group that we call Beauty in Boots. We call ourselves Bibs. We talk about everything in that group. And we truly talk about the trauma that each one of us have endured. Now, if I get emotional, I need y'all to pardon me, because my scars I have been carrying for over 25 years. My name is Tamika Aguirre, and I am a survivor of military sexual trauma. I am a soldier also from Fort Hood, Texas. Every time I saw Vanessa's face on social media and TV, I saw myself. I know personally what she went through. Some say I am lucky because my predator went to jail. He was convicted of 14 charges, and 7 of them was mine alone. I endured one of the most worst times of my life when I had to sit through a court-martial and watch the same chain of command that was supposed to protect me tear me down. I couldn't walk in the child hall and hold my head up without the whispers, the name callings. She's lying. She's not telling the truth. But I thank God for my father, who was the only person at the time that I was going through this that I shared it with. I thank God for his guidance and telling me, do not hold your head down. It's going to be rough. It's going to be tough. They're going to try to break you, but you already know what you were made of. And I did. I held my head. I held the line. Today, I still suffer from that trauma. I still have nightmares 25 years later. I was 24 years old when that happened to me. I'm 50 today. Some people don't understand or know what military sexual trauma is, but it's a terrible journey. It is a terrible journey. I thank each and every last one of you for coming out here to listen to my story. I thank you for standing with me in this fight, because we are taking on the United States government. That's going to be a battle. But me and my sisters, we refuse to be silent anymore. We will continue this fight with every breath in our body. We will not shut up. We will not stand down. We will not fear anyone in this journey. We have already endured the worst of it. It can't get any worse than what it's already been.
Yes, that's right.
And I ask you to stand with me. I ask you to rally up. We have already rocked for you. We have carried backpacks on our back that weighed more than we did. So imagine carrying that in the weight of our trauma. We've been through something, but we will not be silent. I have a couple more things here that I want to say, and then I'm going to pass this mic on. This movement will bring up deeply rooted emotions, some good and definitely some bad. But we got this. It is our time. The other day, one of my heroes and my fraternity brother of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated Congressman John Lewis was escorted across the very bridge in which he almost lost his life. On that day, he was being honored for his nonviolent fight in the civil rights era. Brother Lewis has been fighting for social justice before my birth into this world. When I was asked to lead a protest for veterans, something I have never done, as the organizer, I began to reflect on his words when I became concerned with the topic. The news coverage and the pushback from those who would cringe at the topic of military sexual trauma. In his words, I have heard 1,000 times and I have read many more. You cannot be afraid to speak and to speak out for what you believe. You have to have courage, raw courage. If you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to do something about it. We may have not chosen this time, but the time has chosen us, me and my sisters and everyone that stands with us. So in following his instructions, I decided to get in good trouble for the sake of the women in every branch of our armed forces. Join us in our national protests across this country, because I am my sister's keeper. I would like to read something from one of the veterans, from one of my groups. It's titled, I Don't Care. I don't care about the reason why you enlisted. I don't care what branch you were in. I don't care what rank you were. I don't care what your AFSC or MSO was. I don't care how many times you deployed or not at all. I don't care what era you served in. I don't care about how many years you served. I don't care about what awards you received. I don't care if you lived inside of the wire or outside the wire. I don't care if you fired your weapon in combat or not. I don't care if you were a male or a female. I don't care if you laughed at inappropriate things. I don't care how good or bad your living conditions were. When the country needed you, you answered the call. You served with honor. You were forever changed by your time in. You may be struggling to find your place in the civilian world. You are struggling with belonging. You are struggling with finding purpose. 60,000 veterans took their life in the last decade. I care. If you need an ear to listen, I care. If you need help finding some type of service, I care. If you're trying to find a sense of belonging, I care. If you're finding that you are at the end of your rope, I care. If you feel like the most significant times of your life are behind you, I care. If you are yearning to find your post-military passion, I care. I am here. I will help you the best that I can. If I feel like I cannot help you, I will find you someone who can. We are in this fight together. If you can say, I care, please like and share what I just said to you so that my sisters and my brothers will know they are not alone.
I care.
I'm going to now pass this mic on, as I said, We have flyers up here about who we are. We have brochures about how to help the victims. I ask that you reach out to your congressmen, your congresswomen, and anybody that will listen. Even if you walk up to somebody in Walmart, tell them about military sexual trauma. Educate them about military sexual trauma, because it is real. It is real. Thank you. And now we're going to have Dr. Sonia Lee.
Thank you, Tamika. Thank you for being so brave to tell your story. My name is Dr. Sonia Lee. I am the owner and operator of a mental health facility supporting Arms Continuing Care. I believe that you change things by education. So I appreciate Tamika giving me this platform to be able to educate America and those of us that are out here about military sexual trauma. As Mika shared, that we are here in Newport News, Virginia, but this is a national initiative. I'm standing up here with someone that's holding the mic for me. This is not insignificant. Sometimes when we go through stuff, we need to have someone to hold our backs. So when I say I am my sister's keeper, I am my sister's keeper, okay? So Chanel, thank you for standing up here holding the mic for me, and I'm gonna educate you all on what military sexual trauma is. Military sexual trauma, that we often refer to as MST, is a term used by the VA to refer to experiences of sexual assault or repeated threatening sexual harassment that a veteran experiences during his or her military service. National data reveals that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 100 men respond to yes when they are queried on their veterans intakes if they experience military sexual trauma. I'm going to provide you with some statistics. Men versus women. Veterans experiencing military sexual trauma. Men 4%, women 41.5%. Veterans experiencing sexual harassment 3.9% for men. Women 41.1%. Veterans experiencing sexual assault, men 0.5%, women 10.2%. The definition used by the VA comes from the federal law Title 38 U.S. Code 1720 Delta, and it's psychological trauma, which in the judgment of a VA mental health professional results from a physical assault of a sexual nature, battery of a sexual nature, or sexual harassment which occurred while the veteran was serving on active duty for training, or inactive duty. Sexual harassment is further defined as repeated, unsolicited, verbal or physical contact of a sexual nature which is threatening in character. Examples include being pressured or coerced into sexual activities, such as with threats of negative treatment if you refuse to cooperate with, or promises of better treatment in exchange for sex. Someone having sexual contact with you without your consent, such as when you were asleep or intoxicated. Being physically forced to have sex. Being touched in a sexual way that made you feel uncomfortable. Repeated comments about your body or sexual activities. Threatening and unwanted sexual advances. Anyone can experience MST. It's not gender specific. Things you may experience could include disturbing memories of nightmares, difficulties feeling safe, feelings of depression or numbness, problems with alcohol or other drugs, feeling isolated from other people, problems with anger, irritability, and other strong emotions, issues with sleep, physical health problems. So you see that military sexual trauma, MST, is something that happens to us. When we take an oath to serve, we take an oath to serve the military. No one wants to have these things happen to them. But you see that it's a long-term effect. Trauma, psychological trauma, physical trauma. So I am my sister's keeper. Mika, I stand with you. I am Vanessa Gilliam. I am Lavina Johnson. Thank you all for the opportunity to educate you on MST.
My name's Carly King. I am an Air Force veteran. I served for 4 years and I was sexually assaulted 3 times. The first time, I didn't report it because I didn't want to ruin his life. And I feel like that's something a lot of women and men feel. And you have to realize that somebody assaulting you is them ruining their own life. You reporting is you saving yourself. I'm part of our Sisters Keeper movement along with Tamika. And we have 3 main things that we are asking to change from Congress. 1, we want a civilian counterpart be appointed and given the authority to investigate alongside military investigative services and given the authority to recommend prosecution. Because all too often, prosecution is not enough. My best friend was raped by her husband and he was charged with it and not punished. He had absolutely no prosecution. 2, we're asking for active duty personnel to have the ability to report sharp violations to the civilian counterpart and have their identity sealed from the chain of command until needed for court-martial proceedings so that people don't experience things like Tamika experienced with being berated by your entire unit. And 3, we ask that the government links CODIS to MEPS to prevent sexual predators from ever entering the military. This is something that Diana Danis and service women who serve have been asking for already, so we're just pushing it along with our platform as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lindsay Church. I'm the Executive Director of Minority Veterans of America. Thank you for coming out this afternoon and for getting involved in the fight. 101 days. It's been 101 days since Vanessa Guillen was murdered. 101 days since a daughter was lost. 101 days since a sister last called. 101 days of agony and pain for a family, and 101 days of mourning for a community of survivors. Vanessa Guillen was a 20-year-old woman with her whole life ahead of her and a dream of serving our country in her soul. She was the American dream. Much like so many women in the military, her dreams of serving were destroyed the day that she began to be sexually harassed. The fear that she felt of reporting this harassment rang all too true for the many women who have worn the uniform of the United States of America. This is the American nightmare. In life, Vanessa was the hope and love of a community. In death, she has become the catalyzing force for a change, a rallying cry for thousands of weary survivors, and the final straw that moved us all to action. Vanessa's death has forced us to recount the many military women's lives lost in unthinkable acts of violence and to reflect on a system that does little to protect survivors and more to defend predators. Her name is Lavina Johnson, and they said she died by suicide. Her name is Gloria Davis, and they called her a non-combatant-related death. Her name is Kamisha Block, and they ruled her death-friendly fire. Her name was Blanca Luna, and they called her death a suspicious incident. And the list goes on and on and on. Vanessa Guillen was missing for more than 2 months before she was found, and her chain of command did little to help. Their actions have exposed negligence at best and criminal conspiracy at worst. When they said they didn't know what happened to her, what they meant to say was they didn't care. They didn't care because they thought Vanessa was powerless. They didn't care because they thought the community was powerless. Well, I'm here to tell you that they're wrong. A few weeks ago, we stood on the steps of Congress to demand that they open an investigation into the death of Specialist Vanessa Guillen, and they listened. A few weeks ago, we stood on the steps of Congress to demand change, and they are finally listening. Survivors of sexual harassment and assault in the military have been saying for decades that removing the chain of command from reporting sexual assault and harassment will give survivors a voice, and it will save lives. But it alone won't be enough to change the system. To truly change the system, we must reimagine our demands. We must expand our solutions. Don't let them distract you with breadcrumbs and promises that they will do this one thing for us. Now is the moment that we remind them that real and substantive change will require more than removing the chain of command from reporting. It will take transformation. It will take reimagining the system and reimagining the military. Rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and sexual violence. They aren't about sex, they're about power. They're about power, the power that somebody holds over us, that they can keep us in our place. How many more service members will be sexually harassed? How many more will be sexually assaulted? And how many more will lose their life before we rise up and say enough is enough? We are no longer powerless. We are no longer voiceless. And we will no longer accept a military justice system that is not just. Until they can keep us safe from the violence in the hands of other service members, we must be our own protectors. We must be our own defenders. If the military can't stop the endless assaults on our bodies will no longer fill their ranks. As veterans, we may be the past, but I can promise you that our communities, the communities that we have built, they're the future. And we will not stop fighting. We will not rest until justice is served and until our siblings in arms can serve their community without fear of sexual harassment, assault, and violence. Thank you.
Like 3:15 the latest, so I should have been going at 3. That was number 1.
So, good afternoon, and thank you guys for coming here. My name is Stephanie Merlot, and I am the chapter leader in Richmond for Minority Veterans of America, and also the president of Virginia Pride. But here as well, among other titles, I am a United States Army veteran and an MST survivor. Listening to many of the stories, it makes me, I feel very emotional. I get angry. Everything that has been described today as far as anger, as far as pain, is real. I almost punched my computer monitor the other day because I was so angry at how Fort Hood is handling everything. I was so angry and disappointed because they don't care. Today we are here to honor yet another sister who was murdered and they didn't have to die. But let's also talk about how she died. How somebody took advantage of her, how somebody beat her, and how they dismembered her, burned her, buried her. This is sick. And if he was a suspect from jump, why wasn't he locked up? If he was a suspect and he was supposed to stay in his room, who was on CQ duty that should have been watching? And why did they let him leave? So somebody has to be also held accountable. A lot of people. But we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about how if a rifle goes missing, how the whole post will shut down. But if a soldier goes missing, they're just missing.
That's right. That's right.
And I don't know if they think that if they go missing, it's because they don't want to be there. They would not have enlisted in the military if they wouldn't want to be there. At this point, I feel that many women should get hazardous pay if they are going to enlist in the military. Because when I enlisted, nobody told me about the hazards of being a woman. No one told me that I was going to get groped if I was getting taped. No one told me that when I walk by a sergeant, he's going to lick his lips and tell me I just need the right. No one told me that. No one told me when a female soldier got raped. I'm not going to say sexually assaulted. I'm going to call it like it is. It was rape. That she would be called a whore, and she would be called a slut, and that she asked for it. She shouldn't have worn those shorts.
And then shipped off to the mental ward.
And then shipped off into the mental ward. You are 100% correct. You are 100% correct.
That's how they did it.
Because that is exactly how they did it. Whenever things happened to me, I was so afraid to talk about it because of why? Because of the fact that I knew if I talked about my MST, if I talked about my harassment, of course, it was my leaders who were harassing me, that I then would get shipped off to the mental ward. And I didn't even have anybody to talk to because I was in this little podunk in the middle of vineyards in Germany. There was nothing there. I was surprised we had a clinic that was also ran by soldiers. Who could you talk to? Women have been going through harassment and rape for decades. If reported, normally it is swept under the rug because normally it is done by some soldier who thinks he's better than everyone, who is held to a very high standard. His boots are shine, he's good to go. But why? Because they don't want to have, they don't want those who have committed the crime to look bad. Why? Because they don't want anyone to know that he is, that they're going to hold anybody accountable. Why? What happens? The one that was assaulted is named a slut and a whore, and and they have to see this person every day. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, Sergeant. Absolutely, Sergeant. That's not okay. We have to answer to them. We have to look them in the eye as they smirk next to us, as they look next to us, because they know they have a power. And what I don't get, honestly, is that if Vanessa was missing and they try to say, at this whole time, then when the platoon sergeant said all accounted for, first sergeant, and he turned around and no one was there, what? I don't. Yeah, hold them accountable. Exactly. We demand the chain of command be removed from Fort Hood. It is clear that you cannot police up after yourselves. It is clear that you cannot investigate yourselves. It shouldn't be called an inspection. You inspect a locker. You inspect an arms room. You inspect a uniform. You don't do an inspection when somebody is murdered, raped, and brutally Teahu is a perfect example of what happens when a woman is sexually harassed and nothing is done. Oh, I'm sorry. Something was done. She's in Brick. And guess who's not? Guess who's not? Oh yeah, the Brig military jail, mental institution. You guys familiar?
Yep.
We demand that you free Teahu. We demand that you shut it down. Shut Fort Hood down. It is very clear and very evident that you guys don't know what the hell you're doing. And why don't you let somebody in there that does?
Hold them to the standard.
Hold them to the standards that you want everybody else to be held to. Four murders since Vanessa. 4. This year. It doesn't matter, there's 4. There's 4 murders that happened at Fort Hood. Is it because you think that we're that expendable that you just rather not hold, is that it? You think we're gonna get more folks to enlist? No, not with what's going on. No. There is no amount of money you can pay me to risk my life over something like that. And I am damn sure not going to go through harassment and possible rape at this point. Like I said, females should probably get hazard pay at this point. But like I said, as an MST survivor, I get it. I'm here, and I'm here to stand with you all as well. All of you survivors, all of you that have been harassed, all of you that have been victims, active duty, veterans, I don't care who you are. If you're here today, and that means that you have a voice and you're trying to do something, and I cannot express my thanks enough for all of you guys that are here, that are speaking for those who are voiceless, because they need that. They need us now. No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
At this time, I wanted to ask if there are any other MST survivors that are here that want to speak, or if anyone just wants to speak on the subject. We got time. We ain't going nowhere.